Hey, y'all, welcome back to the Late Night Vision Show, episode 72. This is going to be a jam-packed one. We've got a lot to talk about. If you're a deer hunter, this is the show for you. But before we get into all that, I want to bring in Mr. Jason Robertson, the owner of Outdoor Legacy Gear. Thank you for gracing us with your appearance on the show today. I know you got a bunch of hogs running around, but you took the time to come out and talk to us, so appreciate it, man. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. I just have one question. Is this
gosh.
episode 72 or 71?
72.
Is
Yeah,
it?
72. Yeah, that's
My-
what your notes say. 72. So
Well, my printer wasn't printing, so I had to handwrite, and I wrote 71.
man.
So you said 71. I was like, is that right? Okay, 72.
did I
Hey,
say
you know-
71?
You said 72. I thought it was 71.
Yeah,
I don't know.
72.
I think if we get to 100, we just quit counting them anymore.
Exactly.
It
That's
just-
a good idea.
Yeah. Oh,
But
no,
hey-
man. It's what's going on with you?
You know, Ben, really what we're going to get into the show today about deer hunting and thermal and getting ready for deer hunting, because we know you're seeing a lot of pictures on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, of all these. Jason, you see them with palletfuls of deer corn going out to their all their leases and getting the feeders filled up. And we're getting a lot of phone call from people that are new into thermal that all of a sudden realize they have a hog problem and they need to get them taken care of. And this is a big time of year for that and for the thermal industry.
It definitely is. You know, I was at Academy, which for those outside of the South may not know, Academy, just a big sporting goods store we have down here. I was over there. Actually didn't even go in. I was meeting somebody in their parking lot.
Loitering. They call that
Loitering in their
loitering.
parking lot. There's one about 30 minutes from me. And I was in there the other day. It was on Friday. And sure enough, man, two guys pulled up in trucks with trailers. They had lawnmowers, Rangers, and box stands, deer stands on trailers. And I'm like, I know what those guys are doing. Sure enough, they came out of there with all kinds of supplies and corn. And
Yep.
so everybody, at least in Texas and a lot of the South, is loading up and getting ready for deer season. It's still hot, but
Yeah, it is. And we're going to get into that kind of talk with thermal and how you can use it in the application of using thermal integrated into your deer hunting techniques and strategies and all that kind of fun stuff. But before we get to that, Jason, I don't know if you saw in the news, I sent you an article, but you read about half of everything I send, and that's a smart thing for you.
it is true. So I don't know where this is going, but
We get a lot of phone calls from people up north, a bunch of coyote hunters that call and say, man, I see y'all out there hog hunting all the time, and that just looks like fun, and I wish I could do that. And first of all, you think, well, be careful what you wish for.
that's right. That's
But
exactly right.
it looks like there's a Fox News article. It looks like some people up north are may get their wish, and it's from an unlikely place. You would think that the hogs would be migrating from the south up north, but it looks like the hogs are coming from Canada down south, and they've spotted some on the border around Montana. So
I did see this article.
Yeah.
I don't know if you sent it to me or what. I didn't. I scanned it. It was pretty short. But I have a question because, again, it's been a couple of days since I saw this. But am I not mistaken? Didn't this story say that there were like 8 hogs or something in this giant
a small
group?
sounder of hogs that spotted on the border around Montana. Yeah, I don't know if it said the number, but I imagine everybody in that surrounding area is running out there with their thermals and their guns.
This is the. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you, we're being invaded from Canada, and it's hogs. And
yeah.
my advice is, if you're up there on the border, go into this siege now. Do not let them. Do not let them come in from the north. We'll be in big trouble.
Right. So yeah, the article described the hogs as rototillers, basically destroying the land, which, you know, anybody that's seen any hog damage or been around hogs at all know that that's completely accurate. I mean, it is one of the most destructive forces, and it said, the article went on to say that if you could design one of the most destructive invasive species of animals, the hog is pretty much the ideal culprit, in that discussion, because it is so destructive. I don't wish hogs on any state, where they're not at right now, any place up north. But I just thought that was ironic that they wouldn't be migrating south to north like they, a lot of spread has been, but actually coming down from Canada. I thought that was kind of funny. So we do have.
I only disagree with one thing. I do wish hogs on some places, and it's all these big liberal cities who think we don't need AR-15s. Washington, D.C. specifically, I think we should transplant a few thousand in there to the White House front lawn and, the Pentagon, and maybe they'll change their mind on some of these gun rights issues.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because if you've watched the recent Democrat, what do they have? Debate.
Yeah.
Beto O'Rourke, his government name is Robert Francis O'Rourke, but saying that he's actually, that heck yes, in the more, I guess, derogatory way, said that he's coming after your AR-15s and AK-47s. And, that has lit a fire on social media right now because of what he said. And there's a lot of backlash really on both sides, surprisingly. The backlash being from, obviously, if you're on the right, that, hey, this is more fuel to the fire of the gun debate. And they're pretty much definitely coming after our suspicions are true. But a lot of hand-wringing from the left. And the reason why the hand-wringing from the left is because basically Beto O'Rourke played his card or showed his cards, is telling everybody exactly what all the Democrats want to do, but don't say it because they're trying to hide a lot of that in policies and stuff. So it has lit, and you've probably seen all the Beto O'Rourke memes going, and there are some really guys. Whoever comes up with these memes, I'm not smart enough to do it, but there are some pretty funny ones floating around right now.
He's no question that Beto is the number one AR-15 salesman for the month of September. That's for sure. I saw that I got an email today from Palmetto State Armory, and they now have a no Beto AR-15 customized lower receiver.
Yeah, I was waiting for an AR-15 named after Beto or something. Oh
yeah, but it's great.
Suspicions. We all know what the end game is. And it's doesn't just stop with AR-15s. No. It is a step-by-step incremental process on the on the gun lobby to get rid of guns completely, and it's a, like I said, step-by-step process. AR-15s right now and AK-47s are the culprits, but it never stops there.
We can talk about this forever. I just want to say one thing real quick. I saw online a guy who was actually very well spoken, seemed somewhat educated, but not about guns, and he was a Democrat, and he wrote this comment to something related to this Beto stuff. And he said, no one needs these weapons of war that were made for the battlefield. He said, like the 5.56 AR-15 that is capable of accurate shooting 2 miles and still penetrating 5 foot of solid concrete. I'm just going to tell you something. I've shot a lot of hogs with AR-15, 5.56. With some really good rounds, and I am just not getting 5 foot of concrete penetration. So, especially at 2 miles. So I don't know what exactly he's talking about, but I don't have access to that one. Maybe it's a ghost gun or something. I'm not sure. So
I've shot a lot of hogs with a 223, and you sometimes can't even find the entrance or exit wound on them.
It's magic.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny. As you had to look up the actual size of the caliber before he wrote it.
He read that somewhere. He didn't even know what it meant. So,
but anyway. I'm sure. Stay tuned. Coming up on the Late Night Vision show from here until November of this year. I'm sure.
2020.
We're going to be having more political talk because it is, man, if it ramps up any more than it already has, it's going to get crazy. It is going to get absolutely stupid coming in this year.
Let's quit talking about it. I'm tired of it. I'm getting depressed already.
I know. So, all right. Thank you all for joining us this week. We are talking, if you looked at the title of the podcast on YouTube or on iTunes or Google Play, we are talking about thermal hunting related to all you deer hunters out there. And it is that time of year. And I'm glad we've got probably one of the most famous deer hunters that I know on the show right now. No, we don't have a special guest. We have Jason Robertson, a lifelong deer hunter, taker of many Nacogdoches bucks, right?
Nacogdoches County and a lot of northwest Oklahoma deer as well. Used to do a bunch of hunting up there, and that's where my biggest bucks have come from. But I tell you what, folks, we've got a few things we want to bring up about deer hunting and bringing in night vision, and specifically thermal. We're going to talk a little bit about night vision as well, but we're going to kind of go through a few points of how this can help you. And this is something that is just barely starting to catch on. And there is a lot of deer hunters, or there are a lot of deer hunters who, maybe they're in areas where they don't have hogs, and they just have, or even if they do, they just have no clue the advantages and the benefits that thermal can be for them. Now, I know as a guy who owns a night vision and thermal company, this is a very self-serving podcast telling people all about the products they can go buy. But I am a deer hunter, a lifelong deer hunter, and I come from a long line of hunters. And I'm going to tell you something, and I mean, I'll be talking about this more in some of my experience. This is, in my opinion, the greatest tool that a deer hunter can have at this point. I mean, besides his rifle, I don't think there's anything more important to have than thermal. And I think in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see it revolutionize deer hunting and the capabilities and what you're going to be able to do in the field. And so we're just going to kind of jump in. The first point that I want to make, and I know this is obvious, and you're going to be like, if this is all we came here for, we can stop. But I promise it gets better.
It gets better.
It does. But this is the obvious thing we do have to talk about, because I was on the phone today. Hans and I were talking about this show this morning. We were kind of coming up with an outline. The phone rang. I said, hey, man, I got to go. It's Outdoor Legacy call. I answer it, and the guy says, he's probably going to listen to this because I told him we were going to talk about it. He goes, I'm from Kentucky. I'm up in the mountains. And he said, I'm a deer hunter. We don't have hogs. He said, I don't really hunt coyotes, maybe every once in a while. He said, but I want to use thermal for deer hunting. And I'm like, man, have we got a show coming up for you. So the most obvious thing that the guys down here in Texas and a lot of the South this time of year, I've been talking to buddies, they've been sending me pictures, been seeing them on Facebook. They've got their feeders going, and what do they have? They have hogs. They don't have deer, or they don't have as many deer as they want, but they got hogs. You turn on a feeder down here, spinning corn out, and the hogs are gonna come running. And they will absolutely run the deer off, and they will eat every kernel of corn, and you can train them to a feeder just like in your wildest dreams that you could train a big buck to come in there. Those hogs will be waiting long before that big buck is. I mean, they are smart. And so, again, this is the obvious point, but going out and killing hogs to keep your corn bill down and to get the deer back in there.
Yeah, so a lot of people, deer hunters, will say, man, I don't see a bunch of hogs, but usually around, October or November, that's really when they really start hitting really hard. And you don't want to say it to them, but you're thinking, well, that's because that's when you really start putting out corn.
Exactly right. I always see them from October to January. Well, when do you put out corn? October to January.
Yeah, so when you start putting out that corn. So what we've got several properties that we lease out to deer hunters, and I always make fun of them because I call them prima donnas because they're the eccentric hunters. But we have to go and clear out a lot of hogs. Now we hog hunt on our properties all year long, but we really try to get in there before and get it cleaned out of hogs and any other type of coyotes or raccoons that are tearing up feeders. But I've got a couple properties right now where they've hit it really hard, and the guys have asked us to go in there and do a lot of prep hunting. But they put up feeders, they put up nice feeders, nice deer stands, and I mean it looks like somebody went in there and just tilled the several acres up, deep, some of the deepest ruts that I've ever seen, and big hogs come in there. And that's Jason's. You're absolutely right. Hogs running off deer is a big problem and a big concern because when you hunt at night and you see the deer's reaction whenever there's a hog around, the first thing a deer is going to do, if there's a hog anywhere close, they're running, and they're running to get away as fast as they can. And getting in there, doing that prep work, using the thermal, and there's a lot of different thermals. You don't have to have an $8,000 thermal to go in there and just to clean out hogs. But you going out there and doing that, a couple months in advance, a month in advance, to make sure that you get those hogs out of there.
And even deer season if you've got to.
Deer,
I mean, if you just got to, I mean, it's like,
yeah.
What are your options? Not see any deer or go out there and shoot at night. I know a lot of guys, and I understand it, they don't want to go out and shoot during deer season. Like, I don't want to be banging around. Well, I get it. And I mean, I'm the same exact way. I try to ease in, ease out. But it's like, once you get hogs in there, you better do something or you're just not going to see any deer either way.
Yeah, I think you and I had a debate last deer season about this. Does hunting hogs scare off deer? And
We did.
Yeah, we did. But we had a topic about it, but or not a full show, but we did discuss.
Yeah, we talked about it.
That's a big debate. Hunting at night, is that going to scare off deer? And it depends on who you talk to, but definitely hogs are going to run off the deer, and using the thermals to get in there and clean them out, get them taken care of. And we do that a lot this time of year, getting those hogs taken care of, and shooting as many as we can. And not just helping with the land management, but also deer management.
Yeah, one more thing I'll say on that too is if this is all you want to do, if you're a deer hunter and you say, man, you don't even care about the next points that we're going to make, and we're going to tell you why you need a thermal. But if you say, I just need to kill some hogs and I don't have $2,000 or $3,000 to go buy a scope, that's where I would still say something like one of the, like just for the sight marker Wraith as an example, the Wraith HD. $499, you're going to be able to go out there and kill hogs easily, 100, 200 yards, and that is a very reasonable option. Now, you're not going to get all the benefits of thermal we're going to talk about in the next couple of points, but it is a very affordable way to get rid of hogs. And, it is an option for the guys who say, man, I hear what you're saying, but thermal's not in my budget. Well, the good thing is we've got, night vision scopes, digital night vision like the Wraith. They're cheaper than they ever have been, and they're better than they ever have been. So that's always another option.
Absolutely. So, going in, getting rid of the hogs, definitely something that needs to be done and should be done, especially if you're anywhere down south. But another point, Jason, I wanted to talk about, and if anytime you're talking about deer hunting, it's how do I get into the property and to my stand quietly without making a bunch of ruckus? How do I get in and out? Especially in the morning time when you're walking out in the stand before the sun comes up. People have called me asking that question, can you use thermal to walk around trails at night? And that's, to me, using thermal as a guiding source. Not only that, but spotting deer, locating deer on the stands, locating deer after you if you find them, to track them at night to see what, they come out at night, you can see what size deer you have running around the property. We do that too. I take videos and pictures of deer at night and send them to the deer hunters to say, hey, this is what I'm seeing around the properties. But really using that thermal as a spotter, as a recorder to document what type of deer you have on the property.
Yeah, I'm going to make a comment here, and I'm gonna shock a lot of deer hunters. And a lot of them are just going to probably, spew their coffee or their Coke all over their screen when they hear this. But I can tell you, and I know it's hard to believe, I wouldn't have said this several years ago. But at this point today, if I'm ready to go hunting and I've got my rifle over my shoulder and I'm packing light, and let's say that, I'm not going to carry my whole bag, maybe I'm just going out for a short sit. I don't have room to carry my thermal, for which I'm talking about daylight hunting, guys, all right? And I'm not talking about a scope. I'm just talking about using something as a thermal handheld. If I have my option to carry that or my Zeiss binoculars, my binoculars are staying at the house 100% of the time. Here's the thing. People don't understand a lot of times that you can use thermal during the daylight. It does not hurt them at all. And if I'm sitting on the stand, this is a real-life example. If I take a pair of binoculars and I'm hunting my place, and I normally hunt, it depends. I mean, we may hunt back in the woods down a log road on a log set, and a small opening. We may plant that as a food plot, have a corn feeder. Whether I'm hunting there or whether I'm hunting out in my big pasture on the edge of the woods, maybe in a box blind or a tree stand, looking over a bunch of acres, 400, 500, 600 yards, I can take my binoculars and. You know what this is like. You've got to scan every inch, and you're looking at the whole tree line, under the trees, way over there, and the later it gets, everything looks like a buck. I mean, there's a deer. I see that stump, it's a deer. Is that limb? But seriously, it takes a lot of looking, and any deer hunter knows a deer can stand dead still in tall grass or in the brush, and you can't see them. With a thermal, I can make a scan from 180 degrees or more, and in the time it takes me to go all the way from the left all the way to the right, I can tell you 100% without a shadow of a doubt if there's a deer there or not, within 500 or 600 yards easily. I mean, it's a game changer.
Yeah. So and let's talk about this a little bit just so people know, because I think there's been some questions a lot of people don't know that are new to thermal. When deer and buck are out of velvet, it is, depending on the thermal scope you have, it is difficult to see antlers.
Yes.
So just so you know that if they're in velvet, you can see them very well. If they're out of velvet, depending on how close you are, how good of a scope you have, it may be difficult to see, how big the rack is.
Absolutely. So when they're hard horned, there's no blood flow, and the antlers basically equalize with the ambient temperature of the air. So there's not real heat there to show up. And so, they just kind of disappear on you. Now, you get a buck at 30, 40, 50, 60 yards. Again, depending on how good your optic is, you might be able to see that rack. But even high-end thermals, you get out there and hard-horned at 100, 150, 200, you're probably not going to see it. A lot of times you can see that it's a buck by the way he's walking, by his body size, by, everything about it, but you're probably not going to know. But here's my thing. When I'm talking about hunting during the daylight and using that thermal as a spotting device, I literally, like I said, I can scan that whole field and I can look. If I see something out there, you pick up the binoculars. If you don't have the binoculars, you pick up your scope. But now I know for a fact where to look, and I don't have to question, is that a deer? It's a deer. Or at least there's something. Maybe if you're hunting a place with cows, at least, you can look over there and say, okay, we need to see what that is. Now, I'm going to give you a real life example of this. And there's a lot of guys that are probably going to hear this podcast. They're going to call me and I'm going to tell them the same story. And they're going to be like, I heard this story. But I use it a lot. So perfect example of this. Last year, I'm going to try to make this story as short as possible. My little boy was, I guess, about 4 at the time. And he said, man, Daddy, I want to go hunting. So one evening, we run over here. It's getting kind of late. I don't have, long, maybe an hour before dark. I've got a big box blind that's perfect for us, and it's in my pasture, but it's about 20 yards from the woods. I got a big hardwood bottom that's ours, and so I'm real close to that. And the deer, a lot of time does come out of there late in the evening, feed in the pasture. Well, we're going to try to kill a doe. So we're sitting there, and I've got my thermal, and I'm looking into the woods. The leaves are off, so I can see with the thermal back into the woods 50, 60 yards. With my naked eye, I can't see 5 yards back there. Right. Well, I see a line of deer, and they're just kind of easing their way through the woods. I know it's obvious what they're going to be. It's deer, nothing else out there. And here they come. They got all the way up to right behind my barbed wire fence. And so I'm talking 30 yards. I pull out my binoculars, and I can't see them. I pull out the thermal, and there they are. And there's a doe standing there. Clearly, I know it's a doe. Go to the binoculars, can't see them. And I get this back and forth. My little boy's like, Daddy, what's going on? I'm like, there's some deer. He's like, I don't see them. Well, I promise they're there. Yeah. So it went to this far. I'm going, okay, this tree, this split, there she is, this fence post, cannot see this deer with my binoculars. I'm talking 30, 35 yards. She's not there, but she is. And finally, she takes that last step forward and kind of sticks her head out of that brush. Now I can see her with my naked eye. Mm-hmm. And let's be clear, there's 4 more deer behind her that I absolutely don't know exist with my binoculars or my naked eye. And the point I'm making is that could just as easily been a great big old buck, And so the spotting is unbelievable what you can do with these thermals. You will see deer, and I make this promise to anybody that's a deer hunter and buys one of these, and I have made this promise, and guys call me back and go, no, you're right. You will absolutely see deer that you would have never seen before, or you would have never, yeah, that's what I think I said that right. You'd have never seen them before without the thermal. And I'm going to tell one more quick story about spotting here. So I've got a guy, lives down towards Houston. He's a podcast listener, so he may hear this story. But he was telling me how, he bought a thermal scope from me, and he went hunting with, I think, his college-age daughter over Thanksgiving or Christmas, and they're hunting out there in a big cutover. And so if you're not familiar with what that is, it's basically, rough brush where the pine trees or the hardwoods have all been cut off, and normally it's either planted back or it's going to naturally reseed and grow back, but it's rough. There's brush, there's tops everywhere, and it's a big place. And he said, they're looking out there, sitting in a big stand, and literally they spot a good buck out there at 150, 200 yards with that thermal right in front of them. That they was there, they had never seen it, and ended up, I think she shot it. I don't remember the whole story, but he was just so excited telling me this story. He's like, we see deer out there that are right in front of us in this cut over brush and these tops and limbs that we would never see before. He goes, we don't know how many deer that we've been missing, without thermal. So anyway, that's spotting. It's a very big deal, but I'm going to move on here to this last point, and this is the other big deal, and it goes right along with spotting, and that's tracking. And that is finding a dead or wounded deer. So to finish the story of me and my 4-year-old boy hunting last year, that doe comes on out. She goes under my barbed wire fence, and there she is at 25, 30 yards at this point, and I shoot her. Boom, she turns, goes under the fence, takes off. I mean, she's dead. I know she was dead the minute I hit her, but she's running on borrowed time, no question. Well, we start getting down and, packing up and all the stuff, and it always seems this way. It seems like it's broad daylight when you shoot, but by the time you get to the bottom of that deer stand, it's getting dark, and it's darker than you didn't think it was going to be that dark. Well, I wanted to teach him some blood trailing, skills. I want to get over there, find the blood and all that. Well, we get down, and I do the same thing that every deer hunter does. You got excited when you shot, and you knew basically where she was, and you'd go over there and like, oh, was it right here? Was it right there? And again, I wasn't worried. I knew she was dead. It was a doe. She was real close, but I couldn't find exactly where. So we couldn't find any blood. And by this time, I got the flashlight, and I'm like, this is not going to be a good lesson because I mean, we're going to be here a long time. So I take the thermal. I'm using a Pulsar Helion. I take it, I just turn it on, pull it up, do one quick scan, and I can see her laying over there 40 yards in the brush dead. So now I get to play like I am some kind of an Indian tracker with my 4-year-old, and I was like, I think we need to go this way, and every once in a while I'm pulling that thermal up. Yep, she's right over there. And we got over there, and he still tells a story about how I can track deer better than everybody else. And it's true because I got a Pulsar Helion. But anyway,
you're picking the leaves off the ground and smelling them.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, he thinks I'm the Lone Ranger. So, but the point is, again, I'm not throwing out the importance and the art of being able to blood trail, and again, that's very important. But how many deer, and any deer hunter knows this, how many deer have you shot, you blood trailed, you lost the blood trail, you done whatever, and you've wandered around out there, finally found the deer, and you've walked within 5-10 yards of this thing for 30 minutes. And it's there, you just can't see it laying over there. If you don't catch the wide of the belly or something.
Yeah.
So
and using a monocular to see through all that brush and whatever it is, the thicket that you're trying to, you will be able to see and find that deer so much better. And the possibility of not being able to find a deer that you could find with thermal and letting it, letting it ruin,
Sure, recovering it. And here's the thing. When I used to do a bunch of hunting up in northwest Oklahoma. We were hunting big deer. We were hunting in a lot of big open grass country, some brush stuff, some cottonwoods and stuff along the rivers. But up there, CRP and stuff, you could shoot a deer. That thing run off, fall over, and man, I mean, you could walk all around it in open ground, but it's just grass. It's a sea of grass. And so I sold a thermal to a guy that lives up there a couple years ago, and he told me, he said, man, he said, there is no one that hunts big bucks up here, he said, that shouldn't own one of these. He said, because we lose so many deer, we hunt so hard. He said, now, he said, man, all I got to do is just look around. He said, and he said, if I get in a place where it's so flat and the grass is so tall that I can't see through it because it's so thick. He said, I just find a tree, I find a deer stand, I find something to get up in, look down there. And he said, man, I found deer that I would never find before. He's not using it for coyote hunting. He's not using it for hog hunting. It's solely for deer. So anyway, I think it's a huge tool. I think it's just starting to catch on, and I'm serious about this. It is going to change deer hunting, and for the better. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, it's some unfair advantage." It's not. I mean, it's. No. I don't think by any means it's unfair. I'm not even talking about shooting with it because it's not ideal to shoot with thermal. Because, like I said, you can't see the horns well. I'm not saying you can't do it, but I see no real benefit for that. And I'm going to say one more thing about this. So if you say, do I need a scope? Do I need a handheld? I would say make that decision on your own. If you have a reason that you could use the scope, for coyote hunting or deer hunting or whatever, and you just want to take it off and throw it in your bag and use it as a handheld, you can use it as a dual purpose like that. If you're in an area where maybe you can't hunt coyotes or hogs or at night or what have you, maybe just buy you a handheld if that's all you're going to use it for. But you could use, either way. And I know we're going to get this question because there's a lot of guys that are going to listen to this that don't know anything about night vision and thermal, and they're going to say, what kind of money are you talking about? Yeah. And I would say for a thermal handheld, the least expensive you're going to be looking at is going to be something like the Pulsar Core. I'm sorry, not Core. The Pulsar Axion XM30 Key, $18.99, so $1,900. That's a dedicated, very small handheld monocular the size of a laser rangefinder. Obviously, you can go all the way up. You can go into the $2,200, $2,500 range. If you really want better image quality in a handheld, you can get up in the $3,000 to $4,000. Same thing if you want a scope. I know our listeners that listen every week, they go, well, we know this. But again, I know we have a lot of guys that are going to be new to this. So if you're looking for a scope, same kind of deal. In my opinion, an entry level would be something like the Pulsar Core RXQ30V. Again, $18.99, and you can just go all the way up. But $2,000 to $3,500 is going to get you a very nice scope, and obviously you can spend more if you need to or want to.
Well, the Pulsar Axion, with the introduction of that line of thermal monoculars, the attractiveness of the size of being able to just throw that in a day bag or put it in your pocket. But yeah, we've talked about thermal, lesser price. We've talked to you and I've talked about the LTO tracker, but really to get a good quality thermal, one that you're going to be happy with, that entry level Pulsar Axion Key XM30 at $18.99 is a good thermal.
Yeah,
and there's three models to choose from too. So it goes from $18.99 to $21.99 for the regular XM30, and then $24.99 for the XM38. But there's different magnification levels. But
you brought up the LTO, and so I know there's going to be guys ask that question immediately as deer hunters. I've sold the LTO before. I don't sell them anymore. Generally, at least I don't stock them. I'll quickly, I don't want to do a whole review on that, but I'm going to say this. If all you want to do is you want to track and find a dead deer or a dead animal in the brush or the grass or whatever at close distances, the LTO is fine. You can spend around $1,000. You can get one, throw it in your pocket, and they're just fine for tracking a deer. They will not generally do what we're talking about here with spotting at longer ranges, IDing, doing any of that. They're not weapons mountable. But even if you just want this for spotting deer, I don't advise it. If you just want to track dead or wounded deer, and I say track, I'm not literally talking about looking on the ground and finding the blood. I'm saying looking and seeing that deer, laid up in the brush, then, yes, it will work. That's what it's for, is tracking, but it is not a multi-purpose unit at all. It is an extreme, in my opinion, extreme entry level optic. So I just wouldn't advise it for those sort of things. And, I don't want to beat this dead horse, but I was just thinking about another instance of one time I was with my daughter 2 or 3 years ago, and we shot a doe. She ran off, and it was like early afternoon, but she ran off into some thick stuff. And I knew where she went in. I'd marked it well, kind of visual. We pulled up there on the Ranger. We went in there, couldn't find the blood, finally found some, lost it in this thick brush, and we're walking up and down. So we're almost doing this grid pattern. And we walk, and I know this deer is dead. There's no question. And I just get so frustrated. We're looking all over, and my daughter's getting like, oh, man, what happened? And, I'm like, this deer's dead. We got to find her. So I finally, I go back to the house. I get the thermal, and because this was kind of a deal where an opportunity kill on this doe. I get the thermal. I come back down there, park the Ranger again, and I'm kind of hard headed, so I really wanted to find this deer. So before I even turn it on, I look again, and finally I turn the thing on. I start looking, and I can't find her, and I kind of do a sweep back around, and I realize that deer is laying under the brush 5 yards from our Ranger. She's laid up under this green bush, and what had happened is she went in and she kind of made a circle, and just like she was going to come back out, I guess, and not a very big circle, just a quick little horseshoe, and she crashed underneath that bush. In which people, if you hunt deer, a lot of times when they fall, they're going into a spot, kind of trying to hide, and she was in the perfect spot. And I had literally both times been parked beside her. And once you knew she's there, you could look in there. Oh yeah, there she is. But we weren't even looking there. So anyway, there's another deer found that I don't know if we'd ever found that deer, and we were that close to her.
Yeah. So if you're interested in learning more about this, if you want to learn more about the Pulsar Axions, thermal monoculars, or any other thermal monoculars, go check out outdoorlegacygear.com. If you are interested in purchasing thermal or night vision scopes and optics, please give Jason a call at 877-350-1818. Jason, where do you want them? Any other place to find you at?
You can find me on YouTube and Facebook, Instagram. But here's the thing, folks. This is what I want you to know. I understand if you're new to this, even if you're not. We've been throwing out a lot of names, a lot of scope numbers, a lot of stuff. It's very confusing. Give us a call. Hans gave that number. We will walk you through this. We can talk to you about all the different optics, the different price ranges, what they'll do, what they won't do. And, we will help you find what will work for you, in something that's within your budget. So don't just go out there and say, well, I guess I need to go buy something, because I know it's very confusing, and there is no reason for you to take off down that road not really knowing.
Good point. So also next week, Jason, we're going to be reviewing the Pulsar Digisight. Which one? The ND?
It's the N450.
N450.
Which is the new model, the N450 and the 455. A lot of people have been asking for this review. Hans and I both have our hands on one right now. We've been using them. I've been using it every night, getting a bunch of hog video with it. And we're going to be talking about that. So, we'll be doing a full review on that scope, hopefully next week.
We'll be doing a full review on that. And then sometime after that, on down the road, we'll be comparing that versus the Wraith. So I know we're kind of switching up, doing a little night vision talk here coming up soon. Folks, if you haven't gone and checked me out on Instagram, you can find me at HansETX. You can also find me on YouTube at Hans ETX. Been hunting a lot with the Pulsar Thermion XP50 recently. Got a lot of videos of the reviews up right now, and a bunch of hog killing videos. Dropped a big hog. Jason, I know I just put up on Instagram a big hog last weekend that I called in. And we need to do another talk about this soon, but that convergent collar, man, I've called in a bunch of hogs with that thing. Called in a big one this past weekend, and so that thing's been working well. Been liking it a lot. But thanks for tuning in. Again, this has been episode 72 of the Late Night Vision Show. New episodes drop every Thursday morning. We'll see y'all next week. Stay safe in the fields. Good luck on all those deer hunters that are getting ready for the deer season. I hope to see some good pictures of some big bucks with some thermal next to it. So y'all take care. See you next week. Keep making them bacon pancakes.